What we have here is an A2 sketchbook example from this year's A2 exam based on the question for new realities. This was a particularly in-depth unit of work, and it's all related to the mining industry and the effects of pneumoconiosis on the people who lived in the local communities. That's all explained in this first little bit here, which is just like a little summary, just a little bit of explanation about the question. What we've next got is a little visual mood board. She's looking at sort of artists to do with like sort of social conditions and looking at things where she wants to get a little bit more in depth and a little bit more of an emotive connection with her work rather than just doing something which was just specifically documentary. Then what she's done is she's then analysed these little images here and it goes into full explanation about how they impact in the rest of her work. Artist link here, she's got everyone from sort of Gunther von Hagen because she intends to use actual body parts in what she's doing. She's then looking at David Tejada, which is, he's a sort of a Colorado's basically most highly regarded location photographer, or in this case one of them. Willie Doherty and Richard Billingham for looking at social conditions and the effects of showing that documentary in there. All of these different things are analysed, it talks about the considerations and it shows the links and opinions of that person who's researching the question. It then goes on into a little bit more in-depth information where she then talks about the background of the artist and then talks about the link and her opinion and the connection to her work and ideas. This little bit here is just to help those people who are looking at her work, just to give them a bit more insight into the actual industry itself. And then she starts looking at this pneumoconiosis x-rays and the health conditions associated with it. She's then done a little project plan there, what she intends to do, always helps if you can get them in, just brings the examiner into your work when you're doing that. And then she gets straight into her first starting points, which are all explained in the previous stuff she's done. This is quite useful that she's got a little bit of location, background and history into these first shots, because otherwise it might just look a bit random. She's just been looking at lungs and then she goes on to then getting these sorts of shots. And what they are pictures from Chatterley Whitfield, which is was a huge pit, not far from Staffordshire, sort of, and Stoke-on-Trent. And that Chatterley Whitfield area is still sort of full of lots of old sort of mining implements and artefacts, everything from the buildings to things that they used to sort of like complete the mining process. And then she's gone there, took loads of photographs of the landscape and little bits in the landscape, interesting views and compositions. She's even analysed them at the top there, looking at sort of like the focal points and analysing some of those best images that she took. Then after that, it's quite nice to see a page, no writing, no information, just literally just showing you the best images that she got from that set. Next bit here, this is looking at resource montages. What she means by that is she's been onto the internet, she's researched into pneumoconiosis and she's found out loads of different images, that stock images, just to give her a bit of insight and connection to her own work. She also communicated with the Pneumoconiosis Trust and used some of those images with hers to start the layering process of development, all of which is explained in those bits of text there. Again, more bits where she's then starting to develop. She's then starting to layer over people who lost their minds, in this case it's the Mossfield colliery explosion in Longton. So that's quite a big story on that local area, and just linking social history with the images that she's got. Next page here, this is then looking at development. This is like using texture layers. She wanted to get that old-fashioned sort of textury look to them, to her images. So what she did was had tea stain layers and the edges of old photo frames. Some were stock, some were photographed, and then she then used those just more as like an aesthetic over the work, just to create that little sort of like nostalgic feeling, which is what she was trying to get in her images. And again, those are really quite rich, quite lovely prints. And if you can splash out, it just helps every now and again just to get some professional prints, because sometimes conventional domestic laser and inkjet printing just doesn't cut the mustard on those sorts of things. She goes into a bit more depth on these pages here, looking at physical damage in the same way that your lungs become damaged by the sort of the coal dust and all the things associated with mining conditions. She's then looking at physically distressing the images that she took when she was there in the same way that the lungs were distressed of the miners. And it just goes through whether it was like sort of photos of the miners that she got from Chatterley Whitfield or that she'd been using from the stock, her own images. She's then set fire to them and then photographed it. She later does it with coal as well, just to bring that material link back to that part of the coal. On this other side here, a really lovely image there. I'll stick it in the video so you can see it, where what she's done is it's just the composition of it worked out really well. And no matter how much you intend for a set to work, sometimes it's those accidental shots that really nail it at the end. It's just that sort of the fact you can just see all the key bits of the photograph, but weirdly, in the way it's crumpled, it just sort of leads your eye straight into the back there. As I go on to the next page, again, this is just showing like crumpled up images and just showing that how what once was a thriving industry has been sort of crumpled and destroyed just by the processes of what's happened to it and all the health issues that went along with it. And that's that big image there. Maybe I won't stick it in the video after a while, just fold it so you can see like the light on there. And it's just really, really sort of lovely to see like the textural qualities and the composition in there working. She's done little flips as well, just to create like sort of like quite jagged and angular compositions in the shots she's taken. In these bits here, on this next page, she's then sort of like created a little lung motif shape, and then she's then used that lung motif to then reveal parts of her layered images through in lots of different ways, whether she's using black, white backgrounds, that sort of thing. And it's just basically all the combinations of images that have been layered so far. She then used smoke textures here and start to layer those smoke textures over the top, just so to create something different, something a bit more unusual. And these are quite nice, how the way that they sort of like they layer and they combine images together. And then on the next page, she's got some more of those series images. And in this image here, in these series, you can see how she's then just using repeat images and repeat motifs of those lungs there, just as a way of displaying her layered images. Next page is here. She then takes it one stage further. Maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but for the ideas point of view, really like this one. She then got herself a lovely set of lungs here, obviously not human lungs, that would be against the law, but animal lungs here, I think they were pig lungs. And then as a really, really good link to Gunther van Hagen, she actually then used the photographs of those lungs, or I can talk properly, lungs, and then used those photographs as extra layer material, all of which was correctly disposed with, just in case Ofsted are listening, I don't want to get shot. On the next page here, what she does is she then stuffs pictures and her own layered images back into the lungs again, just so she's then creating a direct link with the previous work she's made, and then using the images with the actual sense of that sort of disease like rumen lung. On the next page here, these were just, again, two of the best ones that were taken. Sorry about the glare on the images. When you're taking pictures in a classroom like this, you can't get away from it. And on the next page here, this was one of my favourite images here. It's a bit tricky to see sort of close up. It almost looks a bit more like an octopus's eye, but actually what it is, she stuffed the coal into parts of the lung and then used that to photograph, and just so it creates that sort of like the dust would have been rubbing off, and it was quite a gross looking thing, but the idea behind it was really quite interesting. And it's quite bizarre to look at an image with, sometimes with a lovely depth of field in it. You can appreciate it from that point of view, but at the same time, it's pretty grotesque what you're looking at. And it just shows then the link between a pneumoconiosis lung and that little lung there. Just on these next page, again, more enlargements of the images, just help to show without the writing and just allow the viewer to consider what she's trying to get at. Really great how she's analysing images there, breaking down that image into the rule of thirds, not just nick the idea from Countryfile. It is a really good way to analyse images, and it's a really good way to show a little bit of technical flair as well without going too in depth. Everything's been sort of like put together in the same sort of format where corrected images are put on the top, and then the contact sheets are then put underneath just to show the amount that have been done and the ones that have been selected. And each one, best images and worst images, are all analysed. More quality pages that are just showing those good shots from those series. It's quite nice that you're getting a little bit of text working in there as well as another texture to go with the sort of weird lungy skinny textures that you get in there as well. This bit here, refined project plan, all that is just literally explaining what her plan is then to do with these lungs. I didn't know if she thought it was going to go very well in the first place, but after she sort of got to grips with it, it went really well, and she then took all these ideas further into outcomes. Using the lungs again that she'd actually created, the lung motifs, she then layered the lung images back in and experimented with that shape again, showing refinement there for AO2, which is one of the things that worked really well. Next page here, what you can see is that in these developments that are going on, she's then mixing photo collages of everything from Chatterley Whitfield there, as well as the lungs together, just to create that little split image. Little cheeky link there as well to Paul Citron, and using photo montages there to create a really interesting built-up image. And then she's got connections all over the shop here from people who've used decoupage, so she's looking at that idea of collage and building up that process, which would have originally been often used decoupage as a decorative big process at times when people, where mining industry was at the height of its power. These are really lovely here, how she's got then textures in the background, looking at these like little brickworky bits here, and just carefully put together. Again, not the most sort of aesthetically beautiful of images, but as for the idea, can't really go wrong there. And then here, what she was then looking to do, instead of just using that motif which she'd drawn out, instead, what she then used here was just basically that parts of the lung then to build up her actual own lung. So it was then, again, more relevant, all of which is then explained here. She's then talking about future intentions, about how she's going to then, later on, project onto the images that she's made. These ones here, really lovely, little subtle developments, just how Photoshop should be used, really, where what's going on is where the images are being layered together in a really subtle way. And just coming in here, Mr. Parks, Air 5.
Unite!
Unite, boom!
Winner.
Winner. Oh, it's Cotton, she's a winner. And back to more serious notes here. I'll just quickly show you this through this little booklet here, where she just used Photoshop and then skew just to combine images she's photographed along with the actual lungs and the parts there, just to create little hidden pockets of developed images that are a bit more subtle than literally just the layered images, or a little bit less subtle if you've got a chimney sticking out of a lung. Exam plan, just going through then what she then intends to do. Oh, I'm losing the book off the screen a bit. What she's done here is she's then got lumps of coal, and this was on the exam day, and she's got lumps of coal and then projected her images onto it just to create another set, and another development, another experimentation. She's clearly gone through the setup there, talks about the camera settings to show she really does understand what she's doing, and she's not just being fluky. These were quite bizarre as well. They almost sort of resembled like sort of almost halfway between a stone brick wall, or they could be like little blood cells, who knows. But they were really quite interesting from like, you know, as an experimentation compared to what she'd done. She then took that idea further, which was the projecting, and then projected onto an old miner's lamp that she'd had, and then she then went on to later on project the image of the lung, which you'll see in a second, back onto one of her models, one of her sitters. So the whole thing was definitely of her origin. It was her model that she basically decorated up to with coal dust and like worked in to give that sort of like mining chic, if you want that sort of word. I don't know, sounds a bit mental. But then if you go through the next couple of pages, you see that actually some of the images are actually just quite good from a compositional point of view. But the real chicken dinner winners are the ones where the lung just perfectly just sits into that the exact part of the body that it was meant to, and it's made the whole thing work. And this one is particularly like a bit of a horrible looking image. It almost looks like a massive aberration is sort of like swollen out the back, which would be a little bit like sort of like close up as like part of that pneumoconiosis disease. Looks like it's swollen out and created quite a grotesque image, but from a point of view where it's just a starting point, no Photoshop in there, really good shot there. And you can see here that actually the entire set, she took a fair few shots in the end from this, knowing the student themselves, she probably like deleted half of them anyway. So there's an awful lot of work gone into that. Really, really good that this is what it's led up to. And that's one of the things that she did on the exam day. Two really cracking shots from there. That aberration-y one that I was on about there, just really quite grotesque, but it works really well. It's quite almost bizarre that it's got that little Gunther van Hagen link there in the Hagen. Harvey said it, potato, potato. This next one, just showing the link between the lamps, mining lamps, and what she did was once she then got the lamp, she then layered into the middle of those little glass bit there in the centre of the lamp the actual images that she'd laid all the way through. And for a final piece, one of the things she did was she then created these little series of her best images, how she wanted them to be seen. So if you're doing your own work, don't just think about presenting that one image. Combine different sets together and show your ability to combine and arrange things, because that's sometimes what will show this level of sophistication that gets you into that top mark band. Show that ability to combine. And these are just little best images from all across the set. Sometimes don't just go for portrait cropping, just little landscape crops can be a really, really good way of developing your images there. If I just go back onto these last few pages, these were just in the style of Jimmy Kohler, if I get his name right, where what he did was he splits up and splices images together. And that's just what she did. She spliced up images of layers. It's okay, Molly Peters just walked in the room. It's fine, she's making a fair bit of noise, but I'll try and ignore it and carry on with the video. All right. And this little bit here on the left-hand side is where those little splices have then been put together, where she's mixed her projected shots along with those more traditional shots which she'd then either been given from the Pneumoconiosis Trust or ones that she found herself. But really quite interesting, more graphical than they are the projected ones, but nevertheless really interesting. And this, she goes one stage further. Instead of just having the series, she then layers and merges them together to create one seamless composition of layered images. And this one here, really sort of like quite insightful to think, right, I'm going to put the mining wheel right in the middle of these little polar coordinated joiners, because mining was the centre and the heart of the community for a lot of places. She put that mining wheel straight in the heart of her images there as a little sort of link into what she'd done. And in like the whole work, and like bring it back to that social aspect of mining, which is what she wanted to get. Now, it's not too clear to see this bit on here, but I'll stick a picture in the video right at the end. She did like, it was like almost like an AO-sized little mini installation of like an old miner's house, like sort of a section of wall. And then she then put her images into frames and like sort of like little photo bits on there, just to create that little extra effect. Again, it's looking at Richard Billingham, creating that little sort of quite almost, I don't know if you get in trouble for saying this, Asbo-ish sort of like looking the dodgy housing with that sort of like the old-fashioned wallpaper, everything from a mixture of that to little combinations of photo frames, all put together to create one really interesting image. And then on this back page here, and as I'll put in the rest of the video as well, some other shots, these are the sheets which are the money sheets. These are the things which go outside of the book that then show the examiner that you are capable of working really hard. And these are printed on separate sheets just to show the contents of what was done from start to finish, showing a little blow up of explanations with the image here, but you can see how much work's gone into it. Shed load of work, but it shows, and it's had the big payoff in the end because the work looks really sophisticated. Everything's explained, everything's connected back to an artist, and just this one here that I'll show there just shows you clearly like the links to Davis Ayer, who's one of the projection artists, John Thompson, who's like sort of, right in the right place there, John Thompson, little montages, and Jimmy Kohler. So all the links are really clearly shown all the way through, as well as showing then individual enlargements, which aren't really being done justice by the glare of the light, but you can get the idea from the shots that I'm putting up there. I hope that's been helpful, and if you've got any questions, please email me. Toodles!